Most people would tell you that religions are the keepers and preservers of unchanging eternal truths. They would be wrong. Although, of course, every religion is based on principles, understandings, and revelations that remain fairly constant over time. Even the methodologies with which a particular religion sorts out truth from untruth remain similar and distinctive to that brand of religion or its specific manifestation in a denomination or subgrouping. But on the other hand, religion is constantly changing. While the underpinnings for a religion remain fairly constant, the application of these principles to modern situations is a day-to-day task for a religion's leaders and followers. A religion is a living, breathing organism. We open this service with these words by the Episcopalian Bishop Gene Robinson from his foreword to the book, Struggling in Good Faith. With these words, I want to bring us, as he does, to re-examine religious and spiritual life for LGBTQ people. With these words, I want to invite everyone, queer and straight, cis and trans, to reconsider what it means to participate in a community in search of truth and meaning. With these words, I welcome you to this Sunday service of the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. This particular service starts a series of many services to follow that aim to reconnect LGBTQ Iowans with religious, spiritual, and meaning-making community. It is sponsored by Unitarian Universalist congregations across the state, and I thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Birch Spick. My pronouns are they, them, and theirs. I'm a member of this congregation's celebrant team, and I'm offering you this morning's service. Patty Notch is our celebrant assisting this morning. Barb Martin is our song leader, and Bruce Martin is our pianist. Penny Gunther, child of congregants Sarah and Jeremy Gunther, is reading our story for all ages. Sarah Chang is providing our special music. For this coming week, Jean Kraken is our pastoral care associate. Please talk with him if you need some support in this coming week. Lyra Halston is our membership coordinator. And if you have any questions about First Unitarian or would like to be connected to our activities, please email her at membership@ucdsm.org. Her email is being put in the chat. Let's pause as we begin this service to acknowledge the Indigenous land we occupy, no matter where or how we gather. The building of this congregation stands in the traditional homeland of the Bakode people, known also as the Iowa, who now primarily reside in the states of Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. It is also the homeland of the Meskwaki and Sauk peoples who still live in our state.
From many places, faiths, worldviews, experiences, we come into this hour to be together. As we light this chalice, symbol and beacon of our tradition, may its light remind us of our journey to find truth, meaning, and connection together. Our gathering hymn is number 342. Oh, slowly, slowly they return. Barb Martin will lead us in this hymn. In consideration of one another, please mute your mics and sing along at home. We are singing only the first 3 verses, and the words will be posted in the chat box.
Oh, slowly, slowly they return to snow and woodland meadow lawn. Great trees all spreading and upright, the blossoms of the living light. As patient stars they build in prayer, tear after tear of timbered choir, sunbeams of falling weightless grace, of song of blessing on this place. They stand in waiting all around, uprising of their native ground. Down comings of the distant light, they are the advent they await.
Good morning. My name is Patty Notch, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am the celebrant for this morning's service. Whether you are here for the hour, for a lifetime, or somewhere in between, thank you for joining us in this community that grows ethically and spiritually, serves justly, and loves radically. This digital service is being recorded, and you will be able to view later on the church website and the YouTube page. Feel free to keep your cameras on, but please keep your mics muted in consideration of one another. After the service, we'll sort out into breakout rooms for a virtual coffee service for conversation, fellowship, and your favorite snack or drink. And we welcome you to turn your mics back on at that time. This is the first service of the Queer Your Faith service series. Queer Your Faith Iowa is a collaborative effort between One Iowa, Iowa Unitarian Universalist Witness Advocacy Network, or IUUWAN, Iowan for short, and Unitarian Universalist congregations across Iowa. Queer Your Faith originally came out of Unitarian Universalist Justice Arizona, UU-JAZ, their UU State Action Network. Upon learning about Queer Your Faith, it seemed like a very doable thing. So Iowan's Vice President Terry Lohman reached out to Iowan members to gauge their interest. After coming out over 40 years ago, Terry remembered feeling alienated from anything religious. Through Unitarian Universalist communities and interfaith work, that alienation diminished, and Terry felt sharing that revelation would be beneficial to younger members of the LGBTQ community. Terry's oldest son and daughter are also gay and lesbian, so Terry's efforts have been multi-generational. If you are joining us today for this program, I want to extend a special welcome to you. If today's service and its message of LGBTQ religious community resonates with you, you can learn more about the Queer Your Faith Project by following them on Facebook. Our faith and action partners for this year are Central Iowa Immigrant Support Coalition and Planned Parenthood North Central States. Central Iowa Immigrant Support Coalition is a group of advocacy organizations for immigrants in our area, and one of their member organizations is a longtime faith and action partner of ours, El Éxito. El Éxito's mission is to provide programming that builds the leadership potential of Latinx youth across the state through college preparation, career development, civic engagement, family support, and celebration of culture. Our other Faith in Action partner, Planned Parenthood North Central States, is committed to providing, promoting, and protecting reproductive and sexual health through high-quality care, education, and advocacy.
My name is Penny, and I will be reading Church for All by Gail E. Pittman and illustrated by Lori Forner. Sunday waking, day is breaking. Let's go to our church for all. Church bells ringing, joyful noises. Choirs singing, laughing voices. Candles glowing, banners flowing. Come enter our church for all. Weak and healthy, neat and messy, poor and wealthy, plain and dressy, all embracing, spirit gracing, each one at our church for all. Bodies wiggling, mommies reading, children giggling, daddies pleading, toddlers flailing, babies wailing. There's room at our church for all. Hands receiving, hands connecting, hearts believing, hearts accepting. Feel the spirit. Can you hear it? It's here at our church for all.
I have a short update about our fabulously fun food fair fundraiser from Elaine Himlau. She'd like to remind us that we have one more week to purchase tickets to events and put in bids on auction items. Check the church website for more information. We make our journey together in this community of meaning, fostering one another's growth through services, classes, and fellowship. So many of us pour our time and talent into this life together. This is possible also through financial giving. Our pledges and donations support the work of this congregation in nourishing our lives, and our Sunday donations support the work of nurturing our values. So in this offering, let us be grateful for all that we have and all that we can share. Half of the offering we give today goes to our congregation's social justice work, and half will be split with our Faith in Action partners to support their work in our communities. While we are outside of our physical church, instead of passing the offering basket, we encourage you to use the giving page on the church's website or mobile app. You'll find that link posted in the chat.
Our first reading this morning is from a book called A Different Church by Gail R. Geisenheiner. I was forthrightly evangelized into Unitarian Universalism. I was 38 years old, living in Maine, driving a snowplow for a living, and feeling very sorry for myself when a friend invited me to his church. He said it was different. I rudely refused. I cursed his church. All blanking churches are the same, I informed him. They say they're open, but they don't want queer folk. To heck with church. My friend persisted. He knew his church was different. He told me his church cared about people, embraced diverse families, and worked to make a better world. He assured me I could come and not have to hide any aspects of myself. So I went, and I dressed so carefully for my first Sunday visit. I spiked my short hair straight up into the air. I dug out my heaviest, oldest work boots, the ones with the chainsaw cut that exposed the steel toe. I got my torn blue jeans and my leather jacket. There would be not a shred of ambiguity this Sunday morning. They would embrace me in my full Amazon glory, or they could fry ice. I carefully arranged my outfit so it would highlight the rock-hard chip I carried on my shoulder. I bundled up every shred of pain and hurt and betrayal I had harbored from every other religious experience in my life, and I lumbered into the tiny meeting house on the coast of Maine. I expected the gray-haired ladies in the foyer to step back in fear. That would have been familiar. Instead, they stepped forward, offered me a bulletin and a newsletter, and invited me to stay for coffee. It was so odd. They never even flinched. They called me dear. Stay for coffee, dear. I stayed for coffee. I stayed for Unitarian Universalism. Over time, the good folks of that church loved up the scattered parts of me and guided me from shattered to whole, from outcast to beloved among many. And those folks listened to me. I and my life partner became their poster children for the brand new Welcoming Congregation program, designed to help congregations live into their values for effective welcoming of LGBTQ people. And they went on to provide important local, pastoral, and legislative ministries to gay folks in Down East Maine. We walked together and we helped each other grow. Please don't think the transition was smooth or swift. These were not imaginary superheroes. They were human beings. And this was the mid-1980s. During the worship service on my second or third Sunday, a woman stood during Joys and Concerns to announce that all homosexuals had AIDS, all homosexuals were deviants who could not be trusted with children, public health, or civil society. All homosexuals should be quarantined, packed off to work camps to provide useful labor for society, and keep their filthy lifestyle and deadly diseases to themselves. As the member spoke, I sat slowly upright from my customary slouch. I tucked in my arms, looked furtively around to see who might be glaring in my direction, and tried to remember if I had parked my truck facing in or out in the parking lot. In its journey of covenant, this congregation had just stumbled onto an important crossroad. But as Joys and Concerns continued, Not one person made reference to the call to quarantine all homosexuals. The pulpit that morning was ably filled by a student from the local seminary. At the end of the sharing, the seminarian made a brief comment to assure us that not all the sentiments voiced in this morning's joys and concerns represented the whole congregation, and that was that. Now I was at my own crossroad. I left quickly after the service, but what about next Sunday? Would I go back? Why on earth would I go back? That would be, well, you fill in the word. Dangerous, stupid, foolhardy, looking for trouble, probably hurtful. But back I went. I was in the throes of learning my first lesson of being in covenant with the congregation. When we covenant to walk together through all that life brings, it means that when things get ugly, we don't walk away. Oh, how we may want to walk away. But our covenants call us to abide and work things through. The next week, the regular minister was back. The service began as usual. I tensed up when joys and concerns came around. Someone announced something like a birthday. I can't fully remember. But I vividly remember that, one by one, folks stood up and awkwardly announced that not everything said last week was right or true or representative of who we were as a Unitarian Universalist congregation. The crossroad had been engaged. The direction the congregation would take was being chosen. This congregation would not get stuck in conflict, mired in name-calling, or diverted from its gentle, steady trek toward building the beloved community. Our aspirations were unfolding one voice at a time. My friend was right. His church was different. He forgot to tell me that at his church, I could be in for a wild ride some Sundays, but he was still right. His church really cared about making things right for everybody.
For our special music this morning, member Sarah Chang shares her cover of All Is Full of Love by Bjork.
You'll be given love. You'll be taken care of. You'll be given love. You have to trust it. Maybe not from this sources. You have poured yours. Maybe not from the directions you are staring at. Twist your head around. It's all around you. All is full of love. All around you. All is full of love. You just ain't receiving. Your phone is off the hook. Your doors are all shut.
In this congregation made distanced by space, but connected by care for one another, we gather each Sunday to tend to one another's joys and concerns. When we are in person together, we lift up the names of those people we hold in our minds and hearts, aloud or silently. If you are carrying someone in joy or concern this morning, you may share that in the chat box. Let our hearts also be with all those near and far, with people the world over who are in need of care and who care for their communities. For people who work to meet the needs of their communities. For those to consider, for those who continue to speak out against injustice. For frontline workers in healthcare and service industries. For families and communities grieving the loss of loved ones. May we bear witness to atrocities that flash before our eyes in quick succession. May we bear witness to the struggles to overcome which we have not yet seen. When we gather together in our congregation's building, it is our custom to light 3 candles. One for the joys and concerns we have shared, one for the names we have raised up, and one for all that remains unspoken, but present here in our hearts. Outside of our building, gathered here together, we take a moment to honor these joys and concerns.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul.
These words for meditation are from the poem Blessed Are the Queer by H.P. Rivers. Blessed are the wanderers seeking affirmation. Blessed are the worshipers praying from closets, pulpits, pews, and hardship. Blessed are the lovers of leaving family and familiarity, leaving tables where love is not being served. Blessed are those who stay. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the queer, disciples of truth, living, breathing, sacred reflections of divine love. These words are yours to reflect on as we enter into 3 minutes of quiet thought, meditation, or prayer. Take a long, steady breath deep into your lungs, down into your belly. Let it out again, slowly. Breathe in, count to 4. Breathe out, count to 4. Close your eyes if that helps you find the center of your space. Feel your neck beneath your head, your shoulders beneath your neck, your back beneath your shoulders, down to where you touch the ground. Breathe in and out.
Our second reading this morning comes from Rabbis Michael Copeland and Devorah Rose in their introduction to Struggling in Good Faith. After centuries of oppression at the hands of religious institutions, many LGBTQ people have understandably written off faith communities. So many have been robbed of their spiritual homes, either because they were rejected by them or because they made a courageous, self-preserving decision to come out of the closet and out of the church. The very place we go for spiritual guidance and sustenance should never diminish our personhood. But there is an incredibly wide range of attitudes preached across the religious spectrum. When LGBTQ people are able to find meaning and community within welcoming religious institutions, they powerfully refuse to cede religion to others who are working to define them out of it. From inside religious life, they are poised to effect great change while holding institutions accountable. Excuse me. When LGBTQ people affiliate with affirming religious communities based on what we know of other populations, there will be a positive effect on both their physical and their mental health status. Researchers posit that some combination of increased and connection to beliefs or activity create a sense of meaning leads to healthier LGBTQ. LGBTQ people need for meaningful religious or spiritual. One of the many successes of congregations specifically serving LGBTQ people has been that after having experienced a lifetime of overt and latent homophobia within their families, communities, school places, as well as the devastating effects of the AIDS crisis and the homophobia that ensued, LGBTQ people desperately need unity. Please join us in our centering hymn, number 1053, How Could Anyone?
How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
You can believe anything you want. It doesn't matter what you believe, but it is important that you participate in the church community. My mother said something to me like this when I was 12 or 13. I can't remember what we were talking about exactly, but I was feeling disconnected from the church we were raised in. While I eventually stopped participating in my religion of origin, this early conversation with my mom has shaped the rest of my religious and spiritual growth. Community enriches our endeavors to find and make meaning in this world, whether through spiritual, ethical, or metaphysical means. But many people struggle to imagine, access, and participate fully in these kinds of communities. This struggle has many causes and manifestations. Today, I want to focus on the struggle that many LGBTQ people encounter in meaning-making community. More importantly, I want to look beyond to see that despite the challenges, finding communities that embrace us is both possible and critical. Honest participation in meaning-making communities allows us to navigate life with the support and guidance of others. My hope is that whether you are trans or cis, queer or straight, you will find something nourishing here for your journey. When I look back to the story I opened with, there were a number of likely causes for my drift from my childhood religion. Many evangelical friends and family members insisted that evolution was ungodly and unsupported by scripture. On the other hand, our Catholic faith offered little guidance or comfort to navigate this. Christianity aside, I was feeling a growing connection to paganism and talked often about this with my mom and her close friends. But there was another growing cause that I kept quiet and to myself. I was queer. To be fair, our faith was not the only or even the most immediate reason I didn't feel safe or supported to be open about my queerness. But I also had a hard time imagining a future where I could be queer and embraced by a religious community. When I say religious community, I mean one where I and others can connect to something, anything, wider and deeper than ourselves, to find some meaning in our lives because of it. I know I'm preaching to the choir here when I say that LGBTQ people are driven out or driven under in the religious communities that raised us. And even among those who find meaning in our communities, we continue to face hurdles and considerations which our straight and cisgender peers may not. Some have called our lives violations of scripture or natural law. Some, like the woman in our first reading, have called us deviants who could not be trusted with children, public health, or civil society. Some tell us we're just too conspicuous. We can find ample rhetoric laid out against us. So some of us leave our communities. Some of us hide. Some of us keep going in the hope that our perseverance will pay off. From what our communities of origin may show us, few of us are equipped with the knowledge that other congregations, communities, or traditions can be different, or that we might be better able to flourish somewhere else. This is not unique to LGBTQ people's experiences. Our opening words from Gene Robinson crystallized this monolithic assumption. It's convenient to believe that religion is monolithic. It's a convincing, understandable perspective if we've only known one tradition or congregation. When we are afforded such a small glimpse of reality, it becomes harder to be open to all the other realities that might be around us. It's compelling then to accept that if our birth communities won't accept us, then perhaps no one else will either. While we can explain this reaction, however, that doesn't mean it's without its shortfalls. It cuts us off from other possibilities. Possibilities where we find both meaning and the love of others. That's not to say, though, that we can't make sense of our lives on our own or outside of organized communities. A growing number of people live fulfilling lives without religion. In demographic surveys, we see these people described as spiritual, but not religious, or answering the questionnaire with none of the above. Many LGBTQ people grow up in religious communities and decide not to find new ones after they leave. But some of us leave and long to go back or find a new home entirely. When I was a young teen, realizing that my religious community may not be able to embrace my queerness, I already knew I longed for a religious community that would. There's an added dimension when we find and make meaning together. I can sing and pray and contemplate all on my own just fine, and I do. But it's not the same as singing, praying, and contemplating with others, especially when I have the option to do it all in one place. And maybe most importantly, there is only so much growing I can do on my own. I've grown in communities like this one in ways I could not have all by myself. Robinson reminds us that religion is never monolithic. He calls it a living, breathing organism. A religion, a community of meaning, is the sum of all of its influences, borne out through all of its participants. Sure, a religion's basic components might remain relatively the same, but those components are always filtered through and shaped by its adherents and their participation in the tradition. They come to the surface in new shapes. A religion may be built around a stable structure, but the rest of its parts are always moving. This idea is abstract until we acknowledge that we are the participants practicing and reassessing and reimagining our community's foundational sources. Later in his piece, Robinson discusses the ways that lesbian and gay Christians pushed back against the prevailing homophobia in their denominations to assert that they belonged just as much as their heterosexual peers did. In his words, ancient texts were not discarded, but rather declared misunderstood. And those texts that had long been thought to be obvious in their meaning were questioned. Because many of these people were our sons and daughters, mothers and fathers, classmates and co-workers. We could neither dismiss them nor the claims they were making. And often it felt like chaos. And then, over time, after much wrestling, a new worldview and a new religious understanding emerged. This recounting shows how the basic components of these traditions are cast into new light when LGBTQ participants demand that their lived experiences be taken into consideration. Particularly alongside activism and consciousness raising in broader society, LGBTQ people have worked to assert and cultivate their places in meaning-making communities. This process creates healthier, more affirming communities, not just for queer and trans people, but for everyone. The rabbis Michael Copeland and Devorah Rose, who we heard from in our second reading, write, when LGBTQ people are able to bring themselves fully and authentically to the project of religious and spiritual life, they create theologies and ideologies that challenge traditional notions of gender and relationship, institute new approaches to pastoral care, and bring an awareness of particular political struggles and paradigms of power and oppression. As our first reading showed us, however, this process isn't always copacetic. Sometimes the people we meet can reopen old wounds, or their congregations aren't the refuges we hoped they would be. Hurtful behavior can lead us to question the potential we could find among other people. But as Gail Geisenhainer writes, when we covenant to walk together through all that life brings, it means that when things get ugly, we don't walk away. Oh, how we may want to walk away, but our covenants call us to abide and work things through. To participate in religious community is a commitment. It is a commitment to be aware of other people's mistakes and their ability to cause harm, but also to be open to their capacity to make amends. It is a commitment to trust that no matter what happens, our desire to be together, to make meaning together, will see us through. This takes a willingness to sift out what is worth leaving for and what is worth staying for. A meaning-making community is important, not just in order to make sense of our lives, but to do so in the company of others. Even at its best, though, being in community is never easy and sometimes painful. Yet in spite of that pain and difficulty, we and our communities always carry the potential to continue growing. We create communities by participating in them. Meaning-making communities, like any other, are dynamic. I hope you take that away with you this morning. There are many other dimensions to this conversation that we can't cram into a 15-minute sermon. This conversation hasn't accounted for healing from the hurt religion can create. It hasn't talked about setting boundaries for yourself and knowing your limits. But maybe this will change how you see your religions, your traditions, your communities. So I ask you as our time together ends, how will this change you? What may you take into your life, whether you are a part of our community or another? What path will this send you down? Whatever your journey, may you make it together. We close this service with hymn 295, Sing Out Praises.
Sing our praises for the journey, pilgrims we will carry on, such as in the soul's deep yearnings, like our forebears in their time. We seek the Spirit's wholeness in the endless human quest. Look inside your souls, the kindling of a heart fire. Pilgrims, you find the Spirit of
We go from here on our many separate and interwoven ways. Though we extinguish this chalice, we cannot extinguish the meaning and connection we have found in each other's company. May we carry those with us as we move through our lives.
Our closing words are from Reverend Victoria E. Safford's piece, Any Other Questions? People ask me sometimes, is this a gay church? It's a privilege to answer. Ours is absolutely, gladly, hopefully and humbly, daily, a gay church, a gay tradition, where everyone, including heterosexual members and friends, is welcome, where everyone is needed, where everyone's experience is cherished as a sacred text. Because no one's experience of living or loving can be comprehensive. Because each of us holds clues the others need to know about how to live with dignity and joy as a human person. And none of us knows enough about that yet to be considered whole. It is absolutely a gay church, even as ours is a gay world, if you would like to look around. Gay church, straight church, people's church, a human congregation made holy by the holy hopes and fears and dreams of all who wish to come. Come in, we say. Come out, come in. We're all in this together. May this church be gay, be queer and straight, trans and cis, a church where anyone might find a home. May you take this with you into the wider world. Peace, amen, so may it be.
Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere.